The alien ambassador's eyes widened in horror. You did what? Daniel Carter stood frozen in the grand chamber of the Velmaran High Council. The air was thick with tension, the flickering blue lights casting eerie shadows on the towering, insect-like figures surrounding him. He had been in diplomatic situations before, negotiating peace treaties, brokering trade deals, but nothing had prepared him for this. Across the hall, Ambassador Vexar, a Velmaran elder with shimmering emerald skin, clenched his mandibles. His elongated fingers gripped the ceremonial staff so tightly that it trembled. The punishment for your crime is total planetary erasure. Daniel's breath hitched. Had he misheard? Hold on, he protested, taking a step forward. I don't even know what we're accused of. We came here as diplomats. What crime are you talking about? Vexar let out a guttural hiss, and murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. You pretend to be ignorant, the ambassador growled. Typical of a species so reckless, so blind to the laws that govern existence. Daniel's mind raced. This was a first-contact negotiation. Earth had sent a team to Velmara to discuss trade routes and cultural exchange. Everything had been going smoothly, until now. I swear, Daniel said, keeping his voice level. Whatever happened, we had no intention of violating your laws. The council members exchanged glances before Vexar motioned to a holographic display in the center of the chamber. The screen flickered to life, revealing grainy footage. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. It was Dr. Liam Gray, the ship's lead scientist. He was inside a Velmaran facility, frantically working at a control panel. Alarms blared in the background. His face was drenched in sweat. He was shouting something, but the recording had no audio. Then, a bright flash. The screen cut to static. The murmurs in the chamber grew louder. Vexar's voice was a slow, deliberate whisper. One of your kind broke the chain of existence. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had spoken with Liam just days ago. The man was brilliant, if not a little reckless. He was passionate about alien biology, but would he really do something that could threaten an entire world? And more importantly, where was Liam? Daniel turned back to the ambassador. What happened to him? Vexar let out a low, rattling sigh. He ceased to be human. A chill ran down Daniel's spine. What does that mean? Vexar took a slow step forward, his gaze dark. It means that if you do not undo what he has done, Earth will cease to be as well. Daniel Carter's pulse thundered in his ears. Liam ceased to be human. Earth will cease to be as well. The words echoed in his mind like a death sentence. He took a steadying breath, keeping his stance firm. If you expect me to fix this, I need more information. What exactly did Liam do? Ambassador Vexar's mandibles twitched, and he exchanged glances with the other Velmaran elders. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, a shrill voice pierced the silence. We have already said too much. Daniel turned toward the speaker, another council member, her deep purple exoskeleton glinting under the chamber's light. She narrowed her compound eyes at him. You demand answers, she hissed, yet you fail to see your crime. Ignorance is no excuse. Daniel fought to keep his frustration in check. How can I undo something if I don't even know what was done? Vexar sighed and gestured to a holographic console. The room dimmed, and a projection of Liam's final moments flickered before them again. In the recording, Liam moved quickly, his fingers dancing across an alien control panel. Behind him, something thrashed in a containment pod, its shape obscured by shadows and flickering light. Then, Liam turned to the camera, his eyes wild. His mouth moved as he spoke, but the footage had no sound. Daniel stepped forward, his gut tightening. What were you saying, Liam? With a final keystroke, Liam slammed his fist down on the controls. A warning symbol flashed on the console. Then, a flash of blinding light. The recording ended. Daniel exhaled sharply. What was in that chamber? Silence. Vexar finally spoke. It was not for you to interfere with. Daniel clenched his fists. Enough of this. Look, he said, his tone firm. I don't care how sacred this is to you, I need the truth. Was Liam experimenting on something? Did he destroy something? Did he? You ask the wrong questions, Vexar interrupted, his voice barely above a whisper. It is not about what he destroyed, but what he saved. Daniel froze. Saved? The ambassador's mandibles clicked. He hesitated, then finally said, he broke the cycle. The words meant nothing to Daniel. But judging by the furious murmurs that spread through the council, they meant everything to the Velmarans. Before Daniel could push further, a chime rang through the chamber. The doors slid open, and two Velmaran guards entered, their elongated weapons humming with energy. Vexar turned back to Daniel. You wish to know the truth? Very well. You will see it for yourself. A journey into the unknown. The guards led Daniel down a dimly lit corridor, the walls pulsating faintly as if alive. With every step, he felt the weight of unseen eyes upon him. Finally, they arrived at an enormous set of doors. The moment they opened, a rush of humid air hit him like a wave. Inside was a massive underground chamber, a sprawling, bioluminescent cavern filled with eerie, glowing pools. Strange, translucent sacs lined the walls, pulsing gently like giant eggs. Daniel's breath caught. A nursery. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of Velmaran hatchlings floated within the sacs. Their tiny bodies twitched, their limbs curled in fetal positions. They were alive, but not moving. Vexar stepped beside him. This is where the cycle begins, he murmured. Daniel's gaze swept over the chamber. I don't understand. What does this have to do with Liam? The ambassador's eyes darkened. Because he stopped it. Daniel's stomach dropped. Liam entered this place, Vexar continued. And in his misguided attempt to help, he prevented the cycle from continuing. Our young no longer transition. Daniel turned sharply. Transition into what? Vexar didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gestured toward the other side of the chamber, where a massive glass tank stood. Inside it, something floated in thick, green liquid. Daniel stepped closer. His breath hitched. It was a Velmaran elder. Or, it had been. The creature's form was warped, unfinished. Its body was caught mid-transformation, half young, half old, its exoskeleton brittle and splitting apart. Its mouth was open in a silent scream. A chill ran down Daniel's spine. Our young do not live as they are, Vexar said softly. They are merely vessels. When one of our elders reaches the end of their life, their consciousness is passed into a new form. The body is renewed, but the mind continues. This is how we have existed for eons. Daniel's heart pounded. Reincarnation? No, something worse. Vexar turned to him, his expression unreadable. Liam Gray did not understand. He thought he was saving the children. Daniel swallowed hard. Oh no. But he was not saving them, Vexar finished. He was killing us all. Twist and cliffhanger ending. Daniel finally understands the severity of Liam's actions. By stopping the transfer of consciousness, Liam has doomed the entire species to extinction. The Velmarans don't just want him back, they need him back. But there's a problem. Liam isn't missing. Liam isn't dead. Liam is no longer human. Daniel Carter felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. Liam had always been reckless, curious to a fault, but he wasn't a monster. He had tried to save lives, not destroy them. But standing here, surrounded by the eerie glow of thousands of unborn Velmarans, Daniel realized the horrifying truth. Liam had interfered with something far bigger than he understood. And now, Earth itself was at risk of annihilation. The search begins. Daniel turned to Ambassador Vexar. You said Liam ceased to be human. What does that mean? What happened to him? Vexar regarded him with an unreadable expression. Follow me. Daniel hesitated. The last time they had said that, he had been led into a room full of suspended, half-formed alien bodies. But he had no choice. If he was going to stop whatever catastrophe Liam had triggered, he needed to know everything. The ambassador led him down a spiraling corridor, deep into the heart of the underground Velmaran sanctum. The walls pulsed softly, as if breathing. With every step, the air grew thicker, charged with something Daniel couldn't explain. Finally, they reached a towering black door. Vexar placed a clawed hand on its surface. The door split apart with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit chamber. And inside, Daniel saw him. Liam Grey, but not as he was. A large containment pod stood at the center of the chamber, filled with thick, blue liquid. Suspended inside, Liam floated, unmoving. Daniel's breath caught. His friend was alive. But something was wrong. Liam's body was no longer entirely human. His skin shimmered with an unnatural glow, his veins dark with something that wasn't blood. His hair drifted in the fluid, but his face, his eyes, were open. Watching. Daniel stepped closer. Liam? The moment he spoke, Liam's eyes snapped to him. A violent ripple passed through the chamber. The lights flickered. Daniel stumbled back as a deep, inhuman voice echoed in his mind. Daniel, is that you? Daniel's breath hitched. Liam hadn't spoken. His lips hadn't moved. But the words had crawled directly into Daniel's thoughts. He turned sharply to Vexar. What the hell is this? The ambassador's mandibles clicked. This is what happens when one disturbs the cycle. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. I need real answers. What did you do to him? Vexar met his gaze, unflinching. We did nothing. This is the result of his own actions. He disrupted the cycle, and in doing so, became trapped within it. Daniel turned back to Liam, whose body trembled in the liquid, his fingers twitching. Liam, Daniel said, his voice softer this time. Can you hear me? The response wasn't spoken. It was felt. Daniel's mind was suddenly flooded with images, memories that weren't his own. Flashback, the moment everything changed. Liam stood in the Velmaran chamber, alarms blaring. He had found the hatchlings, weak and fading. The data made no sense, their vital signs were perfectly healthy, yet they were dying. That was when he saw the elders entering. Liam had thought they were there to harm the young. He hadn't understood. And so, he had shut down the transfer process. The moment he did, he had felt something rip through him. A force beyond comprehension flooded into his body. His mind fractured, his consciousness caught between two worlds. And then, nothing. Back to the present. Daniel staggered back, clutching his head. His breathing was ragged, his heart hammering against his ribs. Liam, you. He swallowed. You became part of the cycle. Liam's voice echoed in his thoughts. I didn't mean to. Daniel turned back to Vexar. There has to be a way to fix this. Reverse what happened. The ambassador's gaze was dark. There is. Daniel exhaled. Then tell me. Vexar's voice was quiet. The cycle can only be restored, if Liam surrenders himself to it. Daniel's stomach turned to ice. You mean he has to die? Not death, Vexar corrected. Not as you understand it. He must allow himself to be fully absorbed into the cycle. Only then will balance return. Daniel turned back to Liam, whose glowing form drifted weightlessly in the containment pod. His friend had tried to save lives. But in doing so, he had become something else. And now, Daniel had an impossible choice to make. Cliffhanger ending. Daniel faces an unthinkable decision. If he allows Liam to remain as he is, the Velmarans will perish, and Earth will be held responsible. If he forces Liam to surrender to the cycle, Liam will cease to exist as a human. But before Daniel can decide, Liam makes a choice of his own. He escapes. The moment Liam Gray escaped, everything changed. One moment, he had been floating in the containment pod, his glowing, half-human, half-Velmaran form pulsing with energy. The next, he was gone. The chamber's emergency sirens wailed, casting the cavern in flashing red light. Vexar's mandibles clicked in anger. You have doomed us all. Daniel Carter barely had time to react before two Velmaran guards rushed forward, weapons raised. Wait! Daniel shouted, stepping between them. Liam doesn't understand what's happening. You can't just hunt him down like an animal. Vexar narrowed his dark, unblinking eyes. If he is not returned to the cycle, millions will die. The balance has already begun to collapse. Daniel turned, his pulse pounding. Liam hadn't vanished, not completely. His presence lingered, like an unseen pulse in the air. And then, in his mind, a whisper. Daniel, help me. The chase begins. Daniel didn't have time to think. He ran. Pushing past the guards, he sprinted out of the chamber and into the winding tunnels of the Velmaran sanctum. The bioluminescent walls pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. A trail of scorch marks lined the passage ahead, Liam's energy reacting violently with the alien environment. Daniel activated his communicator. Hail, do you copy? Static. Then, a response. Daniel? Where the hell are you? The Velmarans are mobilizing. Commander Mira Hale, his mission lead, had been waiting on their diplomatic vessel in orbit. She had already sounded uneasy about the mission from the start. Things have gone south, Daniel said, breathless. Liam's alive, but he's different. He escaped. Hale cursed. The Velmarans just locked down the spaceport. No one's getting off this planet unless we fix whatever mess you just stepped in. Daniel gritted his teeth. I need a tracker. Can you tap into their bioreadings? Hale was silent for a moment. Then, got it. There's a surge of unknown energy moving toward the outer forests. That has to be him. Daniel exhaled sharply. I'm going after him. Be careful, Carter, Hale warned. If the Velmarans catch him first, it's over. The encounter. The outer forests were unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Towering crystalline trees stretched high into the sky, their translucent branches humming with energy. The air shimmered with floating spores, glowing softly like dying embers. Daniel moved cautiously, his boots crunching against the strange, glass-like soil. Then, a rustling. Daniel turned sharply. Liam? Silence. Then, a figure stepped from the shadows. Liam. But it wasn't entirely Liam anymore. His body flickered between human and alien, his once familiar face now lined with shifting, iridescent patterns. His eyes, deep, endless black, no longer held any whites. Liam. Daniel took a slow step forward. You have to come back. Liam shook his head. I can't. His voice was distorted, half human, half something else. Daniel exhaled. You don't understand what's happening. The Velmarans. They're lying, Liam interrupted, his expression darkening. They want you to believe I ruined their cycle. That I'm a threat. Daniel hesitated. Aren't you? Liam's jaw tightened. Do I look like a monster to you? Daniel's stomach twisted. He didn't know how to answer that. Liam, he said carefully. They told me that if the cycle isn't restored, their species dies. Liam let out a bitter laugh. And you believe them? Daniel frowned. Why wouldn't I? Liam took a step closer, his form shifting under the moonlight. Because they don't just continue their lives through their hatchlings, Daniel. They consume them. It's not a rebirth, it's a sacrifice. Daniel's breath caught. Their elders don't pass on knowledge, Liam continued, his black eyes flickering. They override the young. They steal their bodies. The hatchlings never get a life of their own. Daniel stared at him. You're saying, they kill their own young? Not kill, Liam corrected. They erase them. They never even get a chance to be their own beings. Daniel's heart pounded. But if that's true, then why didn't they just tell me? Liam's expression darkened. Because they don't see it as wrong. To them, it's how it's always been. A cycle that must never be broken. Daniel's mind reeled. If Liam was right, then the Velmarans had been lying to him. A new truth, and a new enemy. A low, inhuman growl echoed through the forest. Daniel turned sharply. They weren't alone. In the shadows, Velmaran warriors emerged, their weapons humming with lethal energy. Liam's form flickered violently. They won't stop until I'm erased. Daniel's stomach twisted. The Velmarans weren't here to talk. They weren't here to capture Liam. They were here to destroy him. Vexar's voice rang through the clearing. Daniel Carter. Step away from the anomaly. Daniel's mind raced. Just moments ago, he had been ready to hand Liam over, to save Earth. But now, he wasn't sure what was right anymore. Was Liam truly a danger? Or had he been the only one brave enough to defy something that should have never existed? Daniel clenched his fists. He had to make a choice. And fast. Cliffhanger ending. Daniel now knows the truth, the Velmarans erase their young to keep themselves alive. Liam is no longer human, but he is also not a monster. The Velmarans are here to kill him, and Daniel must choose between saving his friend, or siding with the aliens to prevent war. The Velmaran warriors surrounded Daniel and Liam, their glowing weapons humming with deadly intent. Their black, compound eyes reflected no emotion, only the cold, unwavering determination of a species that believed in its survival above all else. Daniel's heart pounded. This was it. The moment of truth. Liam Gray has defied the natural order, Ambassador Vexar announced, stepping forward. His actions have condemned our species to extinction. He must return to the cycle, or be eliminated. Liam braced himself, his shifting form flickering between human and something more. I won't go back, he growled, his voice layered with something alien. I won't let you erase me. Daniel turned, his thoughts a chaotic storm. What was the right choice? If he sided with the Velmarans, Earth would be spared, Liam's sacrifice would restore the cycle, and Daniel could walk away knowing he had prevented war. But if he protected Liam, he would be defying an entire species, dooming them to slow extinction. And worst of all, Earth would pay the price. A third player enters the game. A sudden whine of energy filled the air. Daniel's communicator crackled to life. Daniel, get down. His instincts kicked in. He grabbed Liam and Dove for cover just as a beam of plasma ripped through the air, striking the ground where they had just stood. Daniel looked up just in time to see a fleet of Earth's warships breaking through the Velmaran sky. A voice boomed from overhead. This is Commander Mira Hale of the United Earth Fleet, came Hale's firm, no-nonsense tone. Stand down, Velmarans. Liam Gray is coming back with us. Daniel's stomach dropped. Earth had intervened. And they weren't negotiating. Velmaran versus Earth. Vexar snarled, mandibles clicking rapidly. You dare bring your warships into our territory? You threatened Earth first, Hale shot back. We're here to take our man and leave. You have one chance to let us go peacefully. The Velmarans raised their weapons. Your man is no longer human, Vexar spat. And he is no longer yours to claim. Daniel's mind raced. If this turned into a battle, it would be a massacre. The Velmarans were advanced, but Earth's fleet was fully armed. If a war started here, millions would die. And it would be his fault. He turned to Liam, gripping his shoulder. Liam, you have to come with me. If we leave now, maybe. Liam shook his head. You don't get it, Daniel, he said, his glowing black eyes full of sorrow. I can't go back. Not like this. Daniel tightened his grip. Then what do we do? Liam looked at the Velmarans. Then up at the warships overhead. And he made his choice. Liam's final decision. With a slow breath, Liam stepped forward, facing the Velmaran warriors. I won't run anymore, he said, his voice steady. And I won't let Earth start a war on my behalf. Daniel's stomach tightened. Liam. But Liam shook his head. You were right about one thing, Daniel. I tried to save them, but I didn't understand what I was doing. He turned to Vexar, meeting his piercing gaze. I stopped the cycle because I thought it was wrong. I thought I was saving your young. But now I understand, I stole something from you. And if I don't fix it, more will die. The Velmaran ambassador's expression remained unreadable. You understand what must be done? Liam nodded. I do. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Liam, no. But it was too late. Liam dropped to his knees. And he let go. The final sacrifice. A wave of light erupted from Liam's body. It wasn't pain. It wasn't suffering. It was acceptance. His glowing form dissolved into shimmering golden threads of energy, flowing toward the Velmaran hatchlings. The nursery came alive. The once still sacs began pulsing again, the cycle restoring itself. The souls of the elders, long trapped, waiting, finally found their vessels. Liam's presence faded, his final words whispering into Daniel's mind. It's okay. Then, he was gone. Aftermath, the deal that saved Earth. The Velmaran warriors lowered their weapons. The air felt lighter. Vexar turned to Daniel, his expression unreadable. The cycle is restored. Daniel could barely breathe. You said he would live on. Vexar tilted his head. He will. His dark eyes flickered. Just not as he was. Daniel's throat tightened. His friend was gone. But, had he truly died? A soft hum filled the air. One of the newly awakened Velmaran hatchlings stirred. Its tiny, delicate body shifted, and for just a moment, its black eyes locked onto Daniel. And he knew. Liam was in there. Somewhere. Changed. But not gone. Daniel exhaled, swallowing down the lump in his throat. You said Earth would be erased, he said, turning to Vexar. Is that still the case? Vexar studied him for a long moment. Then, he extended his hand. The debt is repaid, he said simply. Earth will not be harmed. Daniel shook his hand. The war was over. Cliffhanger ending and lead-in to final part. As Daniel boarded his ship to leave Velmara, he turned back one last time. His gaze landed on the Velmaran nursery, where the hatchlings were stirring for the first time. One of them, the one who had looked at him, watched him go. And Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that one day, they would meet again. The journey back to Earth should have been a relief. The war had been avoided. Liam had saved the Velmaran species. Earth was spared from destruction. But for Daniel Carter, nothing felt right. As he sat in the cockpit of the UES Valkyrie, staring out at the swirling blue glow of hyperspace, his mind refused to quiet. Because something was wrong. Liam was gone. But Daniel could still hear him. The whispers in the dark. It started on the second day. A faint voice. A whisper at the edge of Daniel's consciousness. Daniel. He jolted awake, heart hammering. His cabin was empty. Only the hum of the ship's engines filled the silence. Daniel ran a hand over his face, exhaling sharply. It's just in my head. Guilt. Stress. But then, he heard it again. I need you to listen. Daniel's breath hitched. He sat bolt upright. Liam, he whispered. Silence. But he knew, he wasn't imagining it. Earth's reaction, the meeting that changed everything. The moment the Valkyrie docked at Earth's high-orbit station, Daniel was pulled into a classified debriefing. The room was filled with military brass, intelligence officials, and scientists from the United Earth government. At the center of the table sat Admiral James Holloway, his expression unreadable. Tell us what happened, Holloway ordered. Daniel recounted everything. The Velmaran cycle. Liam's mistake. His sacrifice. The fact that Earth had barely avoided war. When he finished, silence hung over the room. Then, one of the scientists, a woman in a crisp white lab coat, spoke. You said the cycle was restored, she said, narrowing her eyes. Does that mean Liam lives? Daniel hesitated. He thought of the Velmaran hatchling that had locked eyes with him. Then he thought of the whispers in his mind. Finally, he said, I don't know. The secret nobody knew. After the meeting, Daniel was escorted back to his quarters, but the questions didn't stop. Because the whispers were getting louder. Daniel, something's wrong. Daniel froze. This wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't guilt. Liam was still here. But how? What had he left behind? The unexpected visitor. 3 nights later, a knock echoed through Daniel's quarters. He opened the door to find Admiral Holloway. Alone. We need to talk, Holloway said, stepping inside. Daniel tensed. About what? The Admiral studied him. Then, he placed a small holographic device on the table. A Velmaran transmission flickered to life. Daniel's breath caught. It showed Vexar, the Velmaran ambassador. Daniel Carter. I know you hear him. Daniel's heart stopped. Holloway folded his arms. Mind explaining why the Velmarans think my best diplomat is talking to ghosts? Daniel swallowed hard. I don't think he's gone, he admitted. I think. He hesitated. Then, finally, he told the truth. Liam is still here. In my mind. I don't know how. But the Velmarans know it, too. Holloway was silent for a long moment. Then, he muttered, well, that's a hell of a problem. Daniel clenched his fists. It gets worse, he said. Liam just told me, something is wrong with the cycle. Daniel Carter had a choice to make. Liam's voice still echoed in his head, faint but insistent. Daniel, something is wrong with the cycle. If Liam was right, then his sacrifice hadn't fixed everything. It had only delayed a disaster. And the Velmarans knew it. The final revelation. Admiral Holloway stared at Daniel, his expression unreadable. You're telling me that Liam, who should be dead, is still talking to you? Daniel nodded. And he's warning me. The cycle we helped restore, it's failing. Holloway exhaled, rubbing his temple. If that's true, then we have two options. 1. Ignore it, and let the Velmarans deal with their own problems. Or 2. Go back and fix it ourselves. Daniel clenched his fists. If it can be fixed. Do you think he's telling the truth? Holloway asked. Daniel hesitated. Then, finally, yes. Holloway studied him. Then, he pressed a button on the console. The holographic Velmaran transmission flickered to life again. Daniel Carter, Ambassador Vexar's voice crackled through the speakers. You must return to Velmara. The cycle is unraveling. Daniel's stomach twisted. Liam had been right. Return to Velmara. The UES Valkyrie dropped out of hyperspace above Velmara. From orbit, Daniel could already tell something was wrong. The planet's bioluminescent glow had dimmed. Strange black fissures spread across the surface, pulsing like veins. As the ship descended, Velmaran distress signals flooded the comms. Daniel turned to Holloway. We're running out of time. Holloway nodded. Let's finish what we started. The cycle is broken. Vexar met them in the Grand Chamber. He looked weaker. His vibrant emerald skin had dulled, his movements slower. The transition is failing, he admitted, his mandibles clicking softly. Daniel frowned. But Liam restored the process. The elders should be passing into the young again. Vexar's black eyes flickered. That is the problem. He led them to the nursery chambers, where the hatchlings had begun to change. Daniel's breath caught. They were wrong. Their bodies twisted in unnatural ways, their limbs too long, their eyes unfocused. Their shimmering exoskeletons cracked under their own weight. And worst of all, they weren't moving. The transfer had begun, but the minds of the elders were not taking hold. The cycle was collapsing. Liam's final message. Daniel. The voice whispered in his mind again. Daniel closed his eyes, focusing. Liam, tell me what's happening. The response came not in words, but in a flood of memories. Liam in the chamber, shutting down the process. The ancient souls of the Velmarans desperate to take new forms. The energy splitting, half of it going into the hatchlings, the other half going into Liam. Daniel's eyes snapped open. The cycle is failing because I still exist, Liam's voice whispered. Part of their essence, part of their souls, is stuck inside me. Daniel's stomach dropped.